everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in for another episode. Today I want to talk about some underrated fall baits. Generally speaking, if you watch other videos on fall fishing or you talk to other anglers who do a lot of fall fishing, you're going to hear them talking about the same baits over and over. Whether that's a jerk bait, a lipless crankbait, your vibrating jigs, those are all some very, very good fall baits. They do a great job at catching a bunch of fish. But I want to point out 5 baits that don't get the love that they deserve in the fall period. So we're going to talk about those today. Before I do get into that, though, I want to remind you I do a bunch of one-on-one virtual lessons through fishthemoment.com. It's basically a 1-hour Zoom call to answer any of the questions that you might have. We can go over lake maps, do all of that. If that interests you, check the link out that I'll put in the video description to set one of those up. Also, if you want to support the channel in another matter or another means, you can go ahead and use my Tackle Warehouse affiliate code to make your tackle purchases. I'll put that link as well in the video description for you. Maybe some of these baits will entice you into making an order. If they do, please use my affiliate link. All right, so let's talk a little bit about these baits. The first one I want to talk about here is a poppin' frog as I dropped it. This is the Berkeley Swamp Lord. Just a really good poppin' frog. The frog gets so much love during the warmer time of the year, the summer months, even in the spring, but it tends to really taper off in the fall period. Now, if you happen to live on a heavy grass-filled lake like a Gunnersville, fishing a frog is not an uncommon thing through the fall months. But I do feel like the rest of the country is really sleeping on throwing their frogs. Up here for me, there is a window that exists when the water temp is like 63 to 58 degrees, where a frog is one of the absolute best baits you can throw. The fish tend to really push back into some shallow areas where you might have some good wood, maybe you got some thick grass still, and they put the feed bag on. And a frog is one of the best ways at generating those strikes. Now, having said that, once you start dropping below that upper 50-degree range, I tend to put it away. You're probably better off with some other baits, but do not overlook throwing a poppin' frog or a frog in general, a hollow belly frog, during the fall period. It's one of the best ways to generate a really big bite, just as it is during the summer months as well. Next up, we're going to talk about a spy bait. So right here, this is a Duo Realis 80 size, a spin bait 80. Just an absolute phenomenal bait. This kind of, to me, really falls in the category of being somewhat the same as a lipless. Now, when I say that, obviously it's completely different, but I like to fish them in the same places I would throw a lipless, meaning a lot of times you get those bait fish that are pushing back into a lot of the bays and little fingers and creek arms, and you pick up a lipless to cover a ton of water, to just be able to fish through those areas that are full of bait fish. In some instances, what I'll find is that lipless tends to not generate really good strikes in that area, meaning the fish tend to slap at it. When that happens, that's when I pick up a spin bait and start throwing it through those areas. It's just basically fishing it in the same manner, but I'm fishing it slower, and they tend to really get this bait well. For me, the best time to throw a spin bait or a spy bait, whatever you want to call it, is during the fall period, late summer into fall, and you can throw this in very cold water as well. So if you've got some fish that are still up on some shallow flats, great place to throw it. Or if you've got the patient, you want to throw some heavier ones, you can get it down and fish it in that 20-foot range where some of those fish are starting to set up to winter. But an absolutely great bait that a lot of people are not throwing in the fall. Again, we all know guys are catching them on lipless and they're catching them on jerk baits. This can be fished in those exact same areas. So don't think about putting that away as well. Another one, that completely gets overlooked in the fall, in my opinion, is a swim jig like this. This is our new core tackle swim jig. It'll be coming out this fall. This is our bluegill color with a Berkeley the deal on the back. The swim jig is one of those baits that shines in the spring, shines throughout the summer, and then really gets just completely like put to the wayside when the fall comes, because people start picking up their vibrating jigs and they pick up the spinner baits, and they tend to leave their swim jigs in the dust. You should not be doing that. The swim jig still is one of the best baits to fish tight to cover, where maybe you can't throw the vibrating jig and you can't throw the spinner bait, but you know the fish are holding in those areas because of the fact that those areas are holding more heat. So when you've got falling water temperatures in the fall and you've got some thick cover, you know the bass are going to be tight to that cover because those objects retain heat. The bass, being cold-blooded, want to stay by those areas producing heat. And your swim jigs are one of those baits that allow you to get into those areas and still do a very good job at mimicking the bait fish that those fish are preying on. So don't put your swim jigs away during the fall months. Next up, we're going to talk about a couple of soft plastics. I feel like a lot of people tend to move towards hard baits when you're talking about cold water temperatures, but soft plastics still really catch fish well. Also, one of those, just this guy right here. This is just a soft stick bait, the Berkley Max Scent, the General, in the baby bass color. You can see this one's got some silver flake in it. I really like to throw ones that have a little bit of silver flake because that does a better job in providing a little bit of flash, making it look more like a bait fish, because the bass are keyed in on bait fish this time of year. So you want to have a little bit of flash in it. The baby bass color on this General does a great job at mimicking that. But I will throw this in a couple of different manners. One, if I know the fish are still shallow, tight to cover, I'll just fish it on a wacky rig. But if they're a little bit deeper, a lot of times I'll switch it over to like a shaky head and drag it on the bottom to get down to where those fish are actually at. But there's no wrong time to throw a soft stick bait. It really is a bait that thrives all year long. You might have to change up where you're fishing it or how you're fishing it, but this is one of the best bait fish mimicking plastics that there is. So do not put away your Generals or whatever soft stick bait you like to be throwing. Lastly, we're going to talk just about drop shot. Whatever your favorite little drop shot worm is, a drop shot is an excellent bait year round. It tends to be put on the wayside again when you're talking about falling water temperatures in the fall, but there is no wrong time to throw a drop shot. So if you've got something like a morning dawn colored robo worm, or maybe you like a Berkley Max Scent flatworm, whatever it is, guys, it's a great bait to be throwing during the fall period. For me, what I like to do is when I fish through an area and I'm catching them on the moving baits, maybe that's the lipless crankbait, maybe it's a jerk bait, maybe it's this spy bait, I'll go back through and I'll fish a drop shot a little deeper, because what I find is a lot of fish, if you found an area that's got good concentration of fish, there's generally a handful of fish that did not want to come up to commit to your baits, which are going to be higher up off the bottom. But there's generally a good number of fish as well holding tight to the bottom in those same areas. So I'll go through with a drop shot, usually can catch a handful more fish from the same area where I caught them maybe on a jerk bait or the spy bait or the lipless. So guys, those are 5 good fall baits that you should not be putting away this time of year. They still catch fish really well, and a lot of other people aren't throwing them, so it gives the fish a little something different to look at during this falling water period. If you enjoyed today's video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Stay tuned, new video coming out tomorrow.